Good morning, y'all. Today we're going on a little trip to Stockslagers to see where your annuals come from and how those are potted up and grown on to sell to the consumer or to sell to other garden centers locally. I'm really excited about this today. I told y'all in the fall that I would bring you on this field trip. I took you to Stockslagers in the fall, if you've been following along, to see how they grow their poinsettias for a lot of the local garden centers. And they also offer retail here, so if you're local to the area, stop by and see them when it gets time past our last frost or right before our last frost. If you're into a little more risk, just don't plant them out before your last frost. We're going to go in and take a look and see what their operations look like. I'll probably be showing you some cuttings or some small tiny plugs, so I'm really excited. Let's go take a look. So it feels so good to be back in a garden center, and before we go look at the transplants, I want to show you all of these pansies. I have not been one to plant a lot of pansies, and it's mainly because I don't get my act together until around May. Our last frost, if you're not from our area, tends to be before or around Mother's Day. It can be before or after, so usually the first or second week of May. I've seen it as early as around the 20th of April, but I'm a bit hesitant to start anything early. Of course, pansies are a little more cold tolerant, but I just don't get anything going until then. But I actually added some of these to my order last year because I'm getting a lot of annuals from Stockslagers this year. And I ended up taking them off at the last minute because I was like, I am not going to be in a position to plant any of these any early, but they're really beautiful. So if you love containers, these actually can be planted in winter sometimes in parts of the country. I don't know that I've seen a lot in Ohio. It's hard to find them at garden centers then, because they're pretty winter tolerant, but this is so beautiful. They also have some violas right now, which are also really gorgeous down here. My favorite are, of course, the like purpley blue ones and the yellows. This light blue over here is really, really nice. Check this out. And the blooms are huge. Either way you look at it, it's really exciting to see color in March. It's midway through March, so we have less than 45 days to our last frost. And the way this season is looking, as early as it's warming up, I think this will be one of the years where we have our last frost probably at the end of April. So I'm going to keep an eye on the weather. I don't think my annuals from Stockslagers are coming in until May 9th. I think that's the week right before Mother's Day. So I want to make sure I have all my stuff ready, such as my shrubs and everything else, to get those immediately in the ground when they come in, because I don't want them sitting around and have to water them, because I am getting 450 total plants, and that's a lot to do. But check out all of these gorgeous succulents. So if you're into succulents, they have a lot of healthy stuff. If you follow them on social media, they don't have many left, it looks like, but they had a lot of Cyclamen a few weeks ago. And Cyclamen are perennial in our zone, so you can plant these outside and they'll bloom really early for you, like the hellebores do. I don't have any in my garden. I think I actually tried to add some a few years ago, and I think they require kind of specific conditions, and I didn't end up being able to provide those conditions, so I don't think they came back. But if you have the conditions that they will grow in, they're really beautiful pops of color early in the spring. So that was a baby cyclamen that I showed you. Look at this one. I've never seen one this big. This bloom is huge. I'm also getting my ferns from here this year. I just went ahead and added those onto the order. I ordered, I think, 6 or more of them, put my usual 2 out on the front porch, and then I got the rest for the back pergola. We're going to try putting them out there this year. I kind of strung you along last year and said I was going to add drip up to the pergola, and I never got around to it. There was too much going on last year, lots of planting that had to be done last year to expand those garden beds. But this year I do want to, and I'm ordering ferns to do so, put drip up the pillars of the pergola so these can be watered on a regular basis, because I'm not the best at watering something if it's not on drip, and that's why I've invested so much in drip, so I can have a beautiful garden without a ton of watering maintenance during the year. And I learned that my first year gardening. I planted a bunch of those incredible hydrangeas and watering them, and we had a drought that summer. It was a nightmare coming out every day. It took me like an hour just to water a small portion of the garden that I think it was just the north side of the house and the front of the house because none of the other existing gardens existed 5 years ago. So investing in drip has been a really good thing for me. They also have lemon trees here. It's like squirrel, but really cool to be able to grow your own fruit as well inside. Of course, these can't be planted outside. You could put them outside during the summer, but they would need to be brought in during the winter. And if you don't have a greenhouse, my understanding is, and I have personally grown lemons from seed in the basement. So as long as you give them a good light source, you may not necessarily get fruit if you're not giving them the right type of indoor light source, but they will produce fruit for you during the summer if you put them outside. So this is really, really nice right here. Just can't get over all of the color. So it has been a long winter for me with my neck injury. I've not really got into gardening. I haven't been as inspired as much this winter. I planned out the designs for those beds, but I've not started but my pepper seeds. I'm really behind. I was concerned that my neck would get worse and that, I wouldn't be able to do a whole lot this year. So it's kind of set me back a little bit, but seeing all the color and smelling the garden center, there is a distinct smell. It makes me really excited about this coming season because in a few months, less than a few months, I will be having all sorts of things delivered to my house from here that are going to be just full of color. Looky, looky, we've got some Proven Winners things here. So I have this at home. This is generically called lungwort. This is Proven Winners variety called Pinka Blue. So it has beautiful blue flowers that kind of age to a pink. The ones I have at home I think are called Raspberry Splash, and they're non-Proven Winners variety, but they're also really beautiful. These bloom early in the spring. So you see them blooming here in the garden center, but I just showed you a video a couple weeks ago of mine blooming in the garden right now. Also, this is Dark Side of the Moon Astilbe. So I'm getting some of these in from Walter's Gardens, I told you. So this is what they'll look like. This is a beautiful Astilbe. It has really beautiful pink blooms on it, which don't show in the tag here, but the foliage is really nice, and it's going to pair nicely, I think, with the alliums that I picked up for the front garden bed. If any of you are into fairy gardens, they have a lot of beautiful tiny house plants that would do really well for you in fairy gardens. They even have the lemon cypress over here, which I really wanted this winter, but I kind of refrained from getting them because I'm not the best houseplant dad. But so many different varieties here that you could add to a fairy garden or purchase cheaply and grow into a bigger container yourself. I love these things right here. They also have some primrose, which is a good pansy alternative if you want something perennial. Primrose tends to be hardy in zones 4 through 8, so a big portion of the country, but check that out. These will get larger over time, and you can move them around your garden as they spread. So check out these lantanas. I've not seen any Proven Winners lantanas local either. They are hardy in most zones, like 7 and above, I think. Here, they would just be annuals. Check out that color. We also have lots of other Proven Winners things ready to go. Something they grow here is this really interesting variety of fuchsia that just produces a ton of blooms and is super branched and highly compact. Check out these blooms already. These are going to look so nice and provide a lot of impact on a patio if you want to keep these as hanging baskets, or you could remove the hangers, of course, and just use them in a grouping of containers. They also have caladiums coming, including all of these Proven Winners Heart to Heart caladiums from their collection, which are interesting because from regular caladiums, they do well in full sun. And I have trialed them, I don't think it was last year, but maybe the year before. And they actually did perform pretty well in the sun for me. So this is an olive tree, and it is Jake's dad, the owner of the garden center, but it is for sale, and it is spectacular. And check out these begonias right here. These are also obviously for sale. They cut them back quite a lot in winter, but they will start blooming and putting out new shoots here soon. It's really pretty. So if you're local and you can't find a 𝗖𝗎𝗦 land and sea compost, it's kind of difficult to find. It's a newer product, so it's not readily available a lot of places yet, and it can be expensive. Stockslagers has Coast of Maine organic lobster compost is what it's called. and I've heard that it's really good. I have not tried it myself, but it's $9.99 a bag, which is a better cost than you'll find the 𝗖𝗢𝗗𝗦𝗡 land and sea in a lot of locations. So if you're local to the area, definitely come by and get you some of this. I may have some of this delivered to my house along with my annuals, because you know I'm renovating the vegetable garden and I'm going to have to bring in some more soil. So I'm probably going to get Stockslagers to deliver my soil for me as part of the annuals I'm getting delivered, as well as maybe some compost to mix into the soil that'll go into the raised beds. They also have Proven Winners containers, mixed containers ready. These are of course little babies. I can't even see it, but they'll be ready in just a couple short weeks with fertilizer and love, warmth in this greenhouse, and sunlight. So I didn't intend on this becoming a garden center tour, but when I was here in the fall, they mostly had poinsettias. Of course, it was November, so all of the annuals and perennials were gone. But I'm seeing a lot of perennials and other stuff they have available, and these caught my eye. These are elephant ears from Proven Winners. This one's called Heart of the Jungle. This one's really beautiful, and I haven't heard of this one, but it's really dark, so I may have to pick one of these up. It's a little early, so I'll probably come back. I think I'm going to come back in another month or so to show you the plants that are potted up today, how they're looking. So I might pick one of these up then. But I don't want to get it too early. I have nowhere to store it except the basement, and I think those need probably a little more better light than what I have for my seedlings in the basement. Check it out. This is so exciting. This is what I needed to get ready for spring. The first visits to the garden center in the spring are what really get me going. This is Juniper, the garden center dog. So we're going to take a look at the transplanting process right now, but look at all these Proven Winners containers. They actually have some compostable, or the 𝗖𝗢𝗗𝗘𝗦 pots, and he was going to try and grow some of my plants in them so I can show them to you in the spring when they come in, and maybe we can trial planting them in the ground to see how they decompose over the year, and that'll be a good trial here. But this is the process right here. So they're filling the containers, or the flats, with this machine right here that dumps the soil into the flat. And then it goes down this conveyor belt where it is stuck with all of these tiny plugs from trays. These are zinnias that they're transplanting for the season. And then from there, the zinnias go down the conveyor belt and they stick tags in them. They have a short quality control process to make sure that everything looks like it's stuck okay, and then it runs through its first watering as little plants, like a tiny car wash. And then they're loaded onto these to grow on and move to the grow area. So my friend Jess likes to say when seeds germinate that it's their birthday, and so this is the best opportunity right here for another birthday for these little guys. And Juniper is the sweetest little garden center dog. This is the owner's dog, little Corky. She's real sweet. So they have these crescent gardens containers, which I actually have some of these at my house. I have showed you. And these are from customers, like a local park, that bring their containers here for winter, and then they plant them up for spring, and they take them back to put in the gardens, which I think are really nice. So now that you've kind of seen the process, and I think it's really cool, so they also do cuttings of some plants. They didn't have any available today, but those are hand stuck from what Jake told me. So really quite automated and quick to get this through. And I'm going to take you around and show you some of the behind the scenes greenhouses and some things that are growing, because there's some really interesting stuff here that I would be interested in grabbing in May when my other things come. So these baskets are really beautiful. The owner, Jake, says that they do really well in western-facing conditions, and that's because the baskets are so large. But this one right here is a lot of annuals, including a spider plant. But you can see all the different plants that are in here. There's creeping Jenny and some other things in here. Also a little bloom, really big pot, holds a lot of water. And of course, when I brought you here in the fall, I mentioned that all of these are on kind of self-watering mechanisms. So you can see the line of water up there that comes down and goes into each basket. And then they have below there, these are some petunias as well that are on drip tape. And there are sensors that plug into one of the containers that monitor the soil conditions and then water all of them when they get dry. Included in this watering is fertilizer as well. So they still have to monitor them, obviously, to make sure they're doing okay and not drying out or the system hasn't failed somehow. But it's really nice that all of this is automated. Very much helps them do the other important stuff that garden centers do, like getting all these plants ready without having to tend to these and water them manually for days on end. So they've got a lot of interesting stuff already, including, I think this is called fiber optic grass. Really nice container additions that provide a really nice texture. It's got this little dot at the end of it that kind of makes it look like fiber optic wiring, and that's why it's called fiber optic grass. But some beautiful coleus already. And we're going to go take a look at some of the begonias that I will likely be getting in a few weeks. So in here we have the patio tomatoes that they've already got trellises on for you, and a lot of the combination containers for patio pots. Got some begonias up here, hanging baskets. And these are shade containers, which is interesting. You don't see a whole lot of those, or I haven't in the big box stores. So nice if you have a shady front porch. You can put a shade container. Some of those have coral bells in them, or 𝗗𝗄𝗏. You can see over there. And we've already got blooms on some of these begonias. So you can imagine in 45 more days after our last frost, what these are going to look like. And of course, I immediately gravitate to anything with all of the colors. So these are geranium containers that will also be available. I did not grow geraniums myself this year, and that's because I bought so many of these annuals from Stockslagers directly that I didn't want to spend the time growing them on, because geraniums I usually start in January, and it's just a lot of care, and I wasn't really feeling it this winter. So I will probably not have geraniums this year, but I'll have lots of other beautiful things. Now behind me is a lot of gorgeousness. I am in love with just how this looks. Wouldn't it be incredible to have an area at your house that the shade for your pergola was provided by hanging ferns? I think this is beautiful. So these are some of the ones that I will be getting in a couple months, and they already look really amazing. These take a really long time to grow. He said they get these in, I think it was like August, as small plugs, and they pot them into smaller, little slightly larger containers, and they pot them again, and they slowly just pot them up until they end up in these hanging baskets. So it's a long process that starts in the fall to get these to look this good in the spring. And here we have tons of flats of begonias. And some of these are ones that I will be getting in a couple months. And I was surprised to find these were just stuck, I think he said today or this morning, and they already have blooms on them. So this is green leaf red, so it's a red bloom, and then green leaf white. I think I mostly stuck to the bronze leaf begonias. Not sure if I got any green ones. I need to go back and look in my order so I can start figuring out where some of the things are going to go. But these will look more like mine. They have the darker leaf. I like that texture because it really makes, or I like that color because it really makes the bloom pop. They just have rows and rows of stuff. These are all the peppers that they sell in the spring. So I just started my peppers on Sunday, and I don't know how they'll do. I've not had any germination yet. So if I don't get any germination, then I may pick up some peppers too for my veggie garden. Seed starting this year is not something I've been like super into, but something that's interesting that they're doing here for their clients, which are landscapers, I thought was really cool. They have SunPatiens below me in flats, And these flats are planted with 3 SunPatiens in it, and the entire thing is planted in the ground. So this is for landscapers who have clients who are completely maintained by the landscaper, and it's easy. They can just pop this entire flat in the ground. The roots will spread out, so it'll already have a really great root system. You can see here that it's a solid tray below, a regular tray with holes in it or openings on the side, and these will be really healthy going into the ground, which won't require necessarily as much watering because it'll have a nice beefy root system. You can already see some of the blooms here on some of these. More rows of begonias. So this is the colors that I'm going to be getting. Some whites, and then I think I got just the bronze leaf pink. So you can see the color there on those. And then lots of other things in here that are growing along. One thing Jake mentioned is this year they have moved to using a lot of beneficial insects to take care of specific conditions that some of these plants face. So these are Dipladina, but they're susceptible to mites. And so each one of these containers has a beneficial insect packet that helps treat mites for these plants. And this will go home with you, but it keeps them healthy at the garden center as well, and allows you to have healthy plants all season. I really like seeing garden centers switch to beneficial insects or organic approaches to controlling pests. It's just a sustainability approach, as well as not pouring poison on these plants that are going to end up at your home and potentially damage actual other beneficial insects such as honeybees. Now we're going to take a quick walk to some of the other garden centers that are kind of separated from this main one, and there's a lot of proven winners plants in there, including Supertunia Vista Jazzberry, which I've never found locally, but I placed for my order this spring. Y'all just really have no idea how exciting this makes me for spring, because before today I was just kind of like, bleh, gardening season. But this has become really the start to my spring planting here very soon. So here are a lot of the proven winners babies that you can get from here. And this is Supertunia Vista Jazzberry. So 1 or 2 of these flats, I think I got 1 flat, is coming home with me, which will be 8 plants later this season. We also have some verbenas in here, I believe. Here's what I've planted in previous years is Bordeaux. I really love Bordeaux. It's done really great for me. But we also have the Superbenas. I think I may have got a couple of these as well. Like I said, I need to go through and look. Don't have any blooms on these yet. These are still fairly new planted up. You can see how tiny they are, but in less than 2 months, they will be raring to go into your garden. And above them, they have a lot more containers they sell a lot of for Mother's Day. You can see the plants coming along already. These are 𝗖𝗢𝗗𝗦𝗧s, which are very similar to Supertunias, but they have a smaller bloom. They tend to like drier conditions, so if you're not the best at keeping stuff watered, kind of like I am, they may do better for you as container plants in these hanging baskets. Check this out. These are SunPatiens, along with what looks like a spider plant. It's a really striking color. I wonder what bloom this one is. I am getting some SunPatiens. Oh, here's a tag. Let's see. This is called Wild Salmon, and it's not a SunPatient, it's a New Guinea impatient, but also that color is incredible. And they also have baskets of solid color Supertunias, which is something I love to do in my garden. You know, on the front hay racks for the past few years, except last year I planted all foliage, but all years prior I'd planted a single color of Supertunias, and it just becomes a waterfall of color in the spring. And I actually had someone in my neighborhood that visits their niece mentioned that they were kind of disappointed that I didn't plant Supertunias last year, because they loved the color that they got to see every time they drove by. But I really loved the foliage last year. But this year, I'm probably going to go back to some color and try it out. That may be where the Supertunia Vista Jazzberry is going to go, or I might use some of the other annuals because I have a lot to choose from. Below me, we have Supertunia Vista Bubblegum, which I have tried before, and it is one of the most vigorous Supertunias. So these are going to be really gorgeous this summer for whoever picks them up. Then in this area we have some coleus and some other quart size containers, including some potato vine, which this is, I believe this might be this is the one I'm getting as well. Solar Power Black Heart. Really, really beautiful here. It has really deep purple foliage and it's going to look really nice in containers or in the landscape. These are looking really good already. And how much growth? You can imagine these in 45 more days, what they're going to look like. We have bigger containers of the SunPatiens. So tropical salmon, I did get this one, I believe, in my order. So you can see what the bloom's going to look there. I, of course, got the smaller quart-size flats of these. These are for bigger impact immediately when you plant them in the garden. So mine will take some time to grow on. But it's nice that you have the options here. These are also the ones that I picked up. I didn't get this specific one. Let's see. This one is tropical white. I can't remember if I got that one or not, but the foliage is really nice and striking. So I think these will probably go kind of under the magnolia that I have. Not the southern magnolia that I'm planting, but in the place where I typically put my geraniums for some bright color and impact, both foliage and bloom. Well, you can tell how excited I am by how much footage I have shot, because I don't know that I've ever run my GoPro battery down this much shooting a video. So I want to show you one more thing, and that's the house where they hold a lot of their roses they are growing on for you, and it is looking really incredible and healthy. So let's take a look at those right quick. Here we go. Check out all of this gorgeous rose foliage. So you can definitely see here that depending on which rose you get, the new foliage may come out red, which I think is really striking and something I look for in a rose, or a little lighter green, or a mid to dark green. I prefer roses that have darker foliage. To me, they look a little healthier, but the lime green ones are also really pretty as well. But look, check this one out. It's how dark it is. They also have these really interesting petite knockout roses, which I've never tried, but they're interesting because they can just sit on maybe your patio table outside. You can see all the beautiful growth they're getting on them already. And these are really nice size roses right here already, as well as some roses on standard. So this is 𝗖𝗢𝗗𝗦𝗡𝗦, which is a really popular yellow rose, and one I actually mentioned in the rose video I did about a month ago now. So you can get those on standard, and these are nice because they are tree formed, so you can underplant them with things if you don't like to have them really close to the ground. If you have trouble bending over and pruning on your roses, this is a good option to get one that is going to grow for you upright. And this one right here is a combo, which I have never seen before. So it has both 𝗖𝗢𝗗𝗏 and this other one called 𝗖𝗢𝗏𝗏𝗡 on here. So yellow and purple. That's really interesting. And that, my friends, is going to be the end of this video because the battery is getting low. But I hope you enjoyed this early, late kind of winter. We're going into spring just next week, but it's very, very tip of spring garden tour of a garden center in mid-production, getting ready for customers. I'm probably going to be coming back in another month or so to show you what these things look like that have grown on for 3 to 4 weeks right before they come into my own garden at the beginning of May. So thank you guys for following along, and remember, in a world full of hate, be a light. Take care, everyone. Bye.